Welcome back to the Kingsway Podcast.
Welcome.
You're here. You're ready to roll, and so are we.
We're already ready to roll.
We are. We're rolling right now.
We are rolling. This is the dumbest intro we've ever had. But honestly, that usually means it's just like in worship ministry. If you have a bad rehearsal, the service is probably going to go pretty great. If you have a great rehearsal, it's probably not going to go great. I think this bad intro is a sign that this is going to be a great episode.
We're just we haven't done an intro together in a while.
Yeah.
We've done a few different podcast episodes with a couple different people, which is a chance to go back and check those out.
Yep. 256 and 257.
The one that we just did with Bailey, I really enjoyed.
Yeah.
And it was really fun.
Psalm 34:18 one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
God is close to the brokenhearted. It's good. I hope to get her on more. Don't tell her. We'll just get her to.
She'll never watch this, so I think we're safe.
Yeah. I think she did a great job.
Yeah.
Well, I know we've been kind of putting off a couple different book stuff, and I've been trying to get through Delighting in the Trinity, but we are going to get to that at some point, but that's not going to be today.
May not even be tomorrow.
May not be tomorrow. Probably not going to be tomorrow. Not going to be tomorrow.
We promised that we would have that book done in May.
Mm-hmm.
It may not be done on time. But it's a really good and worthwhile book, and you should read it, and it's just taking us a little longer to read it.
I have so many thoughts on that so far, but I have not finished it, so I don't want to.
Yeah.
I'll just say I've enjoyed it, and it feels like a couple other books that I read earlier on in my Christian walk, and there's some like moments of connection that I feel like I get why you really enjoyed this book.
Yeah.
A lot. And I also enjoy. So
it's just taking me forever.
Yeah. It's not a book that I feel like it's a book that's easy to read, but I can't listen to it. So it's a new skill for me to actually read a physical book.
Yeah.
So it's not a muscle that I have as inept skills at.
You should you're taking a trip this weekend. You should have Katrina read it out loud to you.
Potentially. I don't know if we've ever done that.
Sure, now I've done that. Never with a book like that. Always like a fictional book or something. But it gives us something to do in a 4 or 6 hour car ride.
Yeah.
Where we're doing the same thing, engaging and participating with each other, but I'm driving and I don't have to look anywhere. And yet we're engaged in the same thing.
I wonder if she could do that and not throw up. I bet she could. Make her do it until she can.
From the book content or from the road?
Both. No, I'm just kidding. Okay. From the road.
Yeah.
But no, that's cool. I've never done that before. I've listened to audiobooks together.
It's a cheat code. It's an audiobook that
make someone else read to me.
It's an audiobook that has to pee sometimes.
Yeah. That needs to take a break. Well, we're actually going to do a different book, though, which I think is actually a healthy way to transition into this. We've been in a summer series loosely connected to this book.
Yes, loosely in all caps. So the book, go ahead and hold up the book.
Yeah.
The book we're actually talking about today, you can see it from the title of the episode, but 15 New Testament Words of Life. I've referenced this on Sunday. I think we've both referenced it a handful of times, and maybe a couple other people have, as we're preaching through this book this summer. But basically, we're always hoping to preach on the Bible. Mm-hmm. Sometimes certain seasons in church are hard because it feels like the continuity from one week to the next is kind of a grind.
Yeah.
And you want to make it not feel like a bunch of random haphazard whatevers. So being in a Bible book, preaching through Philippians or Galatians, there's some continuity that you hope to have throughout the book. Preaching through different theological concepts or series, even more important because you're the only one determining the flow of all of those messages rather than the book Philippians or the book Galatians. One of the reasons we picked this book to preach through is that it's a bunch of standalones. Yeah. But the other reason is kind of the story that led us to this book when Trevor is in the Dominican.
Yeah, when I was in the Dominican Republic this last spring, meeting with one of our newest, and one of our new, I should say, mission partners, he recommended this book. He was reading it currently, but he was using it as kind of a tool to help him understand concepts in English and how they would relate in Spanish. And so as he's learning Spanish and he's realizing some English words translate really well, some English words don't, and obviously Greek to English is its own translation. So Greek to Spanish is its own translation. And so he was just talking about how it's helped kind of bring fullness to some of the things, and it being for real life, a lot of the conversations he's having is on the ground with people that need application and need understanding without having to maybe academically dive deep into things right off the bat. And so it was a helpful tool. And so I brought it back and I said, hey, let's look at this.
He introduced you to the book.
Yep,
you didn't know about it.
Didn't know it. Never read anything by Nijay Gupta.
Nijay Gupta?
Nijay Gupta.
I think is right.
I've never read anything by him. I did some research, and Tim Mackey is one of the ones that has forwarded it. Which was also like one of those like, okay. And so, there's other people that have forwarded it, but it was definitely like a something I was curious about. And it seems to work well as like a guardrails for like what we're doing. Yeah.
In essence, I'm going to talk about the book for a second, and then we'll talk about how we're preaching on it. Basically, the book, 15 New Testament Words of Life. There are many other theological books, Bible books that can teach you about God and the gospel and all this stuff. His reason and kind of his guardrails in what he's talking about in this book are he wants to summarize the New Testament in these different words. And really what he's doing is saying the Gospel of Matthew, I can summarize with this one word. Gospel of Mark, I can summarize with this one word. And if you're thinking, Ryan, there are 27 books in the New Testament. How do you summarize it to 15? Well, stop asking questions. Just listen to me. No. So like 1st through 3rd John, I'm pretty sure are one, because there are a bunch of short letters, presumably by the same author. Luke and Acts, very, very famously in Christian academia, are one thing. Luke is written by Luke. Acts is written by Luke.
In my former work.
Yeah, Acts starts with in my former work. Yep. So it's like a sequel almost.
Yep.
And so he's grouping some of these books together, some of these swings at it. So like 1st and 2nd Timothy and Titus, I'm assuming is one. 1st and 2nd Thessalonians, I'm assuming is one. I taught on, out of this book, I taught on the cross, which is his summary of 1st and 2nd Corinthians. Yep. And so he's pulling a lot of pairs rather than saying, because these are different letters or books or whatever, I have to pick a different thing, pick a different word. He's saying, because this is one author talking to one community or something like that, I get to summarize it down into this. And so basically, he has 15 New Testament words, each one being its own summary of a or a couple New Testament books, and is saying this is a really important concept. It's almost always outside of that book as well.
Yep.
But I think I can summarize this part of the New Testament or this book in this way. The other thing is, let me read that subtitle real quick.
Yeah.
15 New Testament Words of Life, a New Testament theology for real life.
Yep.
So every word he picks has something to do with how you live your life, and not just like a word that is important in the Bible or a word that's important in some esoteric, non-physical, non-tangible theological concept. It's like, hey, you can take this chapter and you can use it today.
Implement it immediately.
Yeah.
And I definitely enjoyed that piece of this book. As we kind of jump into it, here's what I'll tell you. If you're looking for something to read this summer or listen to, this is one of those that you could read a chapter, put it down for a little while, pick it back up, read another chapter, and get some really good things.
It's also an audiobook.
It is. And it's also one of those that I feel like it's an easy in, easy out, but with real application. Like I don't think I finished any of the chapters where I was like, well, that's dumb. Like, I mean, it really made me think about some of the words in a way that even as a Bible school graduate, I had moments where I was like, I don't know if I realized how simplistic some of this stuff is, because you can go almost so deep or so like you're saying,
Yeah.
non-applicable, where you make
Yeah.
it more heady than it is,
Yeah.
Fingertips and like actually doing it. So
Yeah. The just for a second, the guy's name, Nijay Gupta. Sometimes people will hear a foreign sounding name, a non-Anglo-Saxon John Smith sort of name, and be like, is this some Eastern mystic who's just dabbling in some whatever? No, this guy was born in Ohio.
Yeah.
His at least one, if not both parents are from India or South Asia in general. But he's a very normal Bible scholar.
Yep.
Teaches alongside Scott McKnight at Northern Seminary, Northern, one of those. Like he's a very standard. It's probably very back.
Yeah.
Maybe right there. Yeah. Hit us with that.
Durham.
PhD from the University of Durham, which is where N.T. Wright was a professor.
And Northern.
Yep, Northern Seminary. Anyway, he's normal. He's not like
No.
yeah. Anyway, not saying he's American. That makes him correct and right. But we are saying like he isn't. There's been a controversy recently with the Passion Translation.
Yeah.
I think the translator's name, translator is a loosely attached word to him. It's like Brian Simmons or something. And this was a guy who was like, God told me all the stuff that's wrong with our English translations and gave me a download of all this information. And so that's how I gave you this translation. It's actually more correct than all the others because it's from God and not just translated from something else. This isn't one of those.
No.
I'm off the cuff. I had a spiritual experience and now I'm going to tell you what God actually thinks and not what the Bible says.
No, this is very grounded.
This, like, he's accredited and whatever. He's got credentials that mean you should listen to him. But also as you listen to him, you'll realize, that does seem like what the New Testament has been saying. And I've just like heard other people twist it this way or that way.
Yep.
Twist is too strong, but just like apply it this way or that way. But this seems like a good centered, healthy New Testament theology. But if you read it and you think, I've listened to R.C. Sproul 100 times, this doesn't sound like him. It's because it's for the ground.
Yep.
It's to be used on the boots on the ground in your daily life. It's not meant to be. So, for example, my chapter on the cross, it's not meant to be everything that could ever be said about the cross.
Yep.
It's meant to be what about the cross applies to how I live today.
And that's part
so
of what
it's going to miss some stuff that are really important.
Absolutely. And I think that's why these words oftentimes get so heady is because by the time you get to the full understanding of them, you're holding so much.
Yeah.
Potentially.
For
inside
instance,
of it.
we're talking about righteousness, his first word in there. And you talk about righteousness to a Bible person and they immediately want to go to put on Christ's righteousness. I'm counted righteous in heaven. And they go to these non-applicable.
Yep.
Now they are really good and true.
Yep.
But these non-useful in your daily life themes, like you're counted as righteous in heaven because of Jesus. Great. What do I do on earth because of that?
Yeah.
Or is there anything I'm supposed to do about righteousness, or is it all done and I don't have to worry about it? No, God. What is that passage? Created to do good works in Christ Jesus or something.
Yes, you're God's workmanship, created in Christ Jesus to do. Yep, His work.
Some of that idea is
Ministry
like
of reconciliation,
created to do some righteousness. Well, if all the righteousness is up in heaven and none of it is down here, and you're not expected to do any of it, that kind of change. So anyway, all I'm saying is he's talking about what to do on the ground. He'll talk about New Testament and Old Testament and background and ideas and whatever.
Oh, yeah.
But because he's so focused on that, you may miss the part about counted in heaven. This would be a great time to say, I have not read this whole book.
No,
Trevor has read this whole book. So if I'm saying anything,
I'm the winner.
You win.
I won. But here's the cool thing. As you're saying that, I was just about to say, the fun thing about this book is you can probably just start by looking at the table of contents and picking a chapter that you would want to learn about. And there's really no building of, like, there's things that obviously, like, maybe he shares a little personal story or, like, there might get some depth through the chapters. But, like, individually, the chapters themselves are almost like devotionals. Like, you could read them like a daily devotional. And then on top of that, because they're associated with a book of the New Testament, a lot of times you could read that book of the New Testament alongside the chapter or with the chapter, and it almost brings it to life.
Yeah.
Or if you would read it before you read the chapter, it almost would help the chapter come to life. And so there's like a level of, I feel like part of the reason I was drawn to the book was not just what Matt and Shanna had shared in the DR, but also as I started to read it, I realized this is like a tool. It's not only helping me learn something, but it's like helping me interact and then pull it into routines or like convictions or applications that make the New Testament feel grounded. Like it really has like some grit to it. And it was nice. It was nice because oftentimes we can talk about things as a concept to learn, but sometimes pulling them into daily life is a little harder.
Yeah. So go ahead. Let me see that copy. I'm just going to read through some of the table of contents and give you an idea of the kind of things he's going to talk about. So chapter 1, he's summarizing Matthew, the Gospel of Matthew.
He's got great subtitles for his chapters.
Yes, he does.
Great subtitles.
Should I just read this whole table of contents?
Yeah, I really think you should.
Just to give you a taste to see like, ooh, is that a thing that...
Yes.
Or have a certain chapter spark your interest. Summarizing the Gospel of Matthew, he has righteousness, subtitle, integrity, justice, and mercy before God and in the world. Chapter 2, summarizing Mark, gospel, God's good news for the life of the world. 3, summarizing Luke and Acts, forgiveness, releasing and restoring to make whole. Summarizing John, life, health, growth, and fulfillment. I already talked about this one, summarizing 1st and 2nd Corinthians, the cross, new life through sharing Christ's death. Galatians and Romans, faith, knowing and becoming one with God through Jesus Christ. Summarizing Ephesians, grace, changed by God's favor and called to be givers. Summarizing Philippians, fellowship, sharing life with God and others. 1st and 2nd Thessalonians, hope, leaning into God's redeemed future. 1st and 2nd Timothy and Titus, salvation, rescued, reconciled, and established for flourishing. Summarizing Hebrews, peace, wholeness, goodness, and harmony in Christ Jesus. Summarizing James, religion, recovering God by loving neighbor. Sorry, that was wrong. Revering God by loving neighbor. I was like, that doesn't sound right.
I literally was like, wait a second. Did I hear that wrong?
1 Peter, holiness, a glorious otherness. 1 John, love, divine affection, loyalty, and generosity. And then summarizing Revelation, witness, public advocates for Jesus and his way no matter what. Yeah.
I feel like when I read the subtitles of those, when I've had a physical book, I was drawn to a couple that, obviously like those are all things that nobody would be like, I don't want any of that, like that doesn't make any, but I think there's like a level of attraction of like, wait, is that really what God wants for me? And does that really have to live just in my head or can it make it into my life?
Yeah.
And I think that's part of what I really enjoyed about this book. And I know you haven't finished it or haven't maybe read it all. It's not a book that I feel like if someone's like learning or like wanting to go deep theologically and like understand some concepts to a level of like N.T. Wright or going to like that, they're not going to probably enjoy this book in the way that it's going to stimulate that kind of mental exercise.
But it does a little bit. It's absolutely for application, but I can't speak on most of these chapters. I can speak on the one on the cross because I read it a couple times preparing for my sermon. And the intro of that chapter captivated me.
Yep.
And I don't know if any of you guys listening remember or if you were here for it, but maybe my second Easter here, I had a whole 40-day Lenten devotional thing that I got a bunch of people involved in writing and reading and recording. And then I had a 6-week or so atonement class. And so like I've dug deep
deep
into the cross and all the like theological pictures of it and all this stuff. And I don't know nearly enough about it, but I've spent time just soaking in that ideology. And the first thing you brought up was something I never thought about, or at least to this depth, which was the cross is not just about death, punishment, and whatever. It's about shame and ridicule. And so like, and the way he applies that to our daily lives is like, what is the cost too high that we should stop helping or loving others? And if you're a Christian, that cost is nowhere to be found. That like Jesus suffered all the stuff. You should be willing to suffer all the stuff for the sake of loving other people, and to consider others more highly than yourself. Anyway, but he gets to this whole place talking about how good the Romans were at shaming people through the cross, how nobody thought it was noble or righteous to be crucified. They wouldn't. So like even the word martyr is a word that comes from somebody's name, Justin Martyr, from the 100s, the 2nd century. Yep. I've seen so many movies and things recently where one of the plot points is like this big evil bad guy, but he's pulling in people and like winning he's in the war of public opinion and whatever. If we kill him, we'll just make a martyr out of him. They'll follow behind him so much stronger. That didn't exist until Jesus, and then later, Justin Martyr.
Yep.
Martyr is his name. He wasn't given the name because martyrdom was a thing. Martyrdom got its name from Justin Martyr being killed and that inspiring Christians to be even more faithful.
Yep.
And so like being killed on a cross, oh, what if we make a martyr out of Jesus? That's not a thought in anybody's mind.
Nope.
That word didn't exist. It was just a guy's name.
We have them recording that conversation. It says, if it's of God, we can't stop it.
Yeah.
That was their their conversation, right?
Yeah. Anyway, so talking about like the shame of the cross, there were no redeeming factors for Jesus, like credibility, or what if it's shameful, but what if he survives and we make a martyr out of him? Nobody thought that. They thought, oh, he's being crucified. That's the end.
Yep.
And he's been ridiculed. He's been humiliated. We shouldn't belong with him anymore.
And that's Philippians,
will be.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was, I mean, that's the type of stuff, though, that I was going to say. The book doesn't go into detail like an N.T. Wright, and it doesn't explain every little thing, but it hits, when it hits hard.
Yeah.
And that's part of what I enjoy about the book, is that it's quick to the punch. Even the chapter on righteousness that I'm going to do, it pulled me in because of how quickly it made me think of righteousness differently than I ever had. And it did the same thing.
Yeah.
It wasn't that I hadn't studied righteousness or I hadn't done a word study on that. I guarantee you I had in college. And it was just more of like, all of a sudden I was scratching my head going, wait, because most of these words are so big that the application sometimes I think gets either
too
left
unwieldy.
out or wordy. It like doesn't actually get to the ground. It's like, it's still like, well, it could be this and it could be that, or it could be this. And he's just like, no, it's definitely this.
Yeah.
End of sentence. Like, you know, like
the reason that this book and the teaching in this book is going to feel so different is because N.T. Wright and Scott McKnight, and N.T. Wright trained Nijay Gupta, even Shane Wood at Ozark Christian College, they don't just have a background in New Testament or New Testament theology or whatever. What a lot of them have is like this training as a historian.
Yeah.
And their focus is on the New Testament and whatever. But you'll talk to any of these guys, and they're not just saying, well, 1 Thessalonians says this. They're saying, well, there was a graffiti on a tombstone that said this. And because of that, I'm not saying that makes them more spiritual or biblical or whatever. But when they talk about righteousness, when they talk about the cross, when they talk about whatever, they're reculturing that word to its original meaning before Christians gave it a new meaning, instead of us standing on 2,000 years of not just meaning making, but redefinition.
100%.
So, for instance, people wearing crosses on necklaces. That's super prevalent today. I know many people who do that right now. Mm-hmm. I've seen plenty of people who are flagrant sinners.
Wear crosses.
But they wear crosses. And I don't just mean like they're sinners and I'm not. I mean like they're unashamed sinners and they have no care in the world for what God thinks they should be doing with their life, but they wear a cross on their neck because it's stylish or they saw this or that person do it. Baseball players, a lot of them from Dominican and Caribbean and whatever, and they'll wear a cross because of their cultural Christian faith or personal Christian faith, and that'll inspire to other baseball players who don't give a rip about Jesus to wear crosses because my idol wears this cross. That is one of a bajillion cultural redefinitions of the cross that didn't exist in Jesus' day. We kind of imagine St. Peter with a cross around his neck like it's a stylish thing, and it wasn't. It's a disgraceful, shameful, terrifying, humiliating thing. And a couple hundred years after the crucifixion of Jesus and the resurrection, they're starting to use some Christian imagery, but not the cross in a physical symbol emblem way. They're using other stuff, the ichthus, the
like
fish, because it's an acronym for honoring Jesus. But they're a little afraid to use the cross. So that's like, think of how many things there could be out there like that, where we're really comfortable with the cross, and we have. I feel weird going to a church without a cross on the outside or the inside of the building. I don't know how many churches there were in the first 200 years that had a cross anywhere near the building. Unless it was the Romans putting it up to say, remember what we did to Jesus?
Don't mess with us.
Here's another one. Here's another guy we killed. So to come back around to the point, N.T. Wright, Scott McKnight, Nijay Gupta, and Nijay Gupta, whatever his name is. I'm sorry, I'm mispronouncing it at rapid speed. But a lot of those guys, and Shane Wood, who we were talking about, when they talk about some of these concepts, they sound really different because they're foreign. We've made them too natural. But these concepts should be foreign. And then when they talk about them, what they're talking about makes some more sense. So he's re-foreignizing the cross and then explaining it and how do I use this in my everyday life. He's re-foreignizing righteousness and then bringing back the meaning.
And I think he does that in almost every one of these chapters. There's like a level of, he has to break down what he thinks you think this is in order to teach you more of what it really is. But then as he's teaching you more of what it really is, you realize, even though it is separated by history and time and language, the concept sits at the center of a lot of the human brokenness, hurt. And then a lot of it sits at the center of the healing that needs to take place. And it's pretty powerful.
I was listening to a podcast today just to wrap up this re-foreignizing idea. I was listening to a podcast with two doctorate-holding Bible people talking about the Bible and politics. And we've done an episode or two about stuff about this. Got some of our most enraged comments on those. Probably. It was great. Anyway, they were talking about how when you read the Psalms today, it's like so emotional and God do this and whatever. But usually you're like jumping around, or you hear the nice ones in church, or you hear the famous ones again. And both of them agreed strongly. And the more I like sat and thought about it, the more I was like, they're like, the Psalms are one of the most political books in the entire Bible. Because what is it talking about most of the time? God as king. So either like almost God's people patriotism, like you're the king and there's nobody else other than you, or king disappointment. You're our king. Where were you? How long are you going to forget us? And just I had like this like going through a wormhole, interstellar sort of moment of like, how is it so obvious? And yet I've never thought about it that way.
Well,
and so it's like re-foreignizing what we think the Psalms are, some scripture. But sometimes people think about this and they're like, oh, you're just a deconstructionist. You're just trying to tear down the faith that's been built up for 2,000 years. No. I care so much about it that I'm willing to go through all these very painful reconstructions of what I thought it said, so I can hopefully get to as as close as I can to what it actually says, rather than what I think or hope it's saying.
And a lot of times we do this with a lot of different things. It's not just the Bible. I think obviously history and time, culture, language, that is a difficult thing to translate perfectly into our context, into our world, into our language. But I also think recognizing that our level of wisdom, our level of understanding, our current circumstances, the Bible changes with how old you are when you read it, or what stage or where you're at. If you're in a really good season, man, I guarantee you're going to read some really good Psalms. But if you're in a really bad season, you might lean into some of the Psalms that you're like, I didn't realize this one was in here. I feel more like the Bible's for me than it ever has been.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's part of what you're even describing is like, there can be a comfort in a certain understanding that it feels destructive to faith to even think that it can be saying something different. It's like losing a friend or losing some sort of like way that God's navigated. But I would, maybe this is more of a poetic way to talk about it, but like I would say that the Bible is all about creating that relationship, and what you needed to know at certain points the Spirit can bring to light and help you know. But as you grow, I think it continues to challenge and push and want more. Friendships are that way, marriages are that way, parenting is that way, a relationship with your parents can feel that way. And it's not that what was before needs to be completely honored if things were broken or not perfect or like.
But also very seldom is there a totally corrupt faith tradition that somebody grows up in. There's something good there. There's something true. And what we're not trying to say is the faith you grew up with or whatever. If this book very lightly and mildly deconstructs, even if it's not saying that's wrong, but like there's more to the story, even if it mildly deconstructs and reconstructs something you believed in before, it's not saying that was wrong, it's saying that was incomplete.
Yes.
Usually.
And I was going to say, it's more just a completion. It's very similar to like how I would tell you, we've talked about this before, like how you would explain marriage to a 12-year-old versus a 20-year-old. It's not that you would explain marriage to a 12-year-old
incorrectly,
in actual ways or incorrectly. It's this, you would just give more fullness the older the kid gets, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's part of what needs to happen is that you don't just want to live in that ignorance. You need to constantly move forward in your understanding of what it means to walk with God and to live out this faith. And I think there's a part of what the New Testament, this book is particularly in these words, I think it does challenge weak points. Or misconceptions. And I do think there's probably a word that you leaned in that you may wish it said something different. You know, like you're like, man, I really wish it didn't mean that. And I think it's easy to fall into the trap of I can make something sound like what I want it to say without really being willing to surrender to what it's really trying to say.
Yeah.
And I think that can be on both sides of something that I want to be justified in the attitude that I have, or it can be something that I need to surrender that this is a change in what I've believed.
So, for example, one of the last chapters is holiness.
Yeah.
I haven't read it. But talking about the preconceived notions that people have, I'm thinking of two very specific Christian traditions who, because of how they talk about and treat holiness in their Sunday services and stuff like that, would give their congregation two different presumptions about holiness that then this book can come in and say, okay, so you guys are a little bit right on it, you guys are a little bit right on it, but you're restrictive against things that are also true about holiness. So the two traditions I'm thinking of are holiness, charismatic Pentecostal traditions. You could think of holiness movements from the Wesleys and Wesleyanism and whatever, all the way through some like holiness movements in some Pentecostal, some Assemblies of God, some like Foursquare, that holiness strain that kind of stopped and started and on and off in different places. The way they see holiness is God has saved us. Now we maintain that or we make God happy or proud by modesty, and that is most of our holiness. So, not watching movies in theaters, men not wearing shorts, women not wearing pants of any kind, just like skirts, and they need to be below the knee. women not cutting their hair, women not wearing jewelry, women not wearing makeup. Now, if you go to a Catholic church, most Catholic churches, the thing you're taught about holiness by experience is, I can't touch the sacraments, the communion elements. Only the vicar of Christ, the priest or the rector or whoever here can bless these elements, and then I'm able to receive them. There's this like holiness distance between the congregation and the stage is not what they would call it. But like the raised area that looks sort of stage-like, where they would prepare the elements or people would come up and read scriptures or whatever. There's a like only the priest, the holy one out of the group of us, and only for this time can bless these elements, can do this ceremony, can say this thing.
Yeah.
And so what are their different understandings of holiness? One is holiness is for everybody. One is holiness is the thing mediating my relationship with God.
Yeah.
I can't receive the stuff from God, the Eucharist, the bread and the wine. I can't receive the gospel reading or some of this other stuff without it being mediated by God, but from God to me by this other guy in a funny hat. Funny hat was a really dumb way of saying it. I'm really sorry. I regret it already. But for the holiness tradition, it's like there is a pastor, there is kind of a mediator for parts of the service, but sometimes they're more like a referee and sometimes they're more like whatever. And most of the time you all are coming as the holy people. You can tell if somebody's not holy, not because they're not wearing vestments, the like colored sash for the time in the church calendar you are, but because they're wearing shorts. Oh, they're not a saved person then.
Yeah.
Or it's a lady wearing makeup or jewelry. I hope God gets to him someday.
And I think that's the beauty of this book is by the end of it, it's neither of those. Right? In this chapter, it's more about talking about the otherness is the way I had to remind myself when I looked at the chapter.
You're good.
But it was one of those like the level of First Peter is more talking about Peter's transition and then trying to explain the difference between being a Jew and being a Christian. And then being in this understanding of like, hey, just like the Israel was set apart, now under Christ, we have been made new. This is a completely different thing. And yes, the holiness of God is the active agent for change, but also who you are was the reason that happened.
Yeah.
The set apartness was you were made in my image. Like you have this piece of you that is set apart and different from the world, holy.
Yeah.
And so
and it's like that chapter will critique both of those traditions I mentioned, not to say you're wrong, but to say what you're holding to is incomplete.
Yep.
There are good parts of it. There are more negative parts of it or less complete or less in line.
Yep.
And take the good that you already have and then line it up with this, which seems scriptural out of 1 Peter, and keep marching forward to Christ-likeness and until you reach the kingdom of heaven. And like,
I feel like you could take one chapter out of this book and it could be, to steal like a phrase that we use, at least I use probably too often, but it could be a linchpin for some discovery of like a way that God would want to show up in your life, that he could reveal himself, that he could call you to something that maybe would feel like real life. I mean, that's the whole point of the book, right? Is to like experience what we would call full life in Christ. But this idea of like, there's more waiting for you, and maybe unlocking these words at an application level would give you insight into what it could feel like to be in line with the Spirit, to feel like what it would be in line with Jesus, to ultimately come underneath what you were created in the image of the Father to be. And I think that's why this book, in my mind, is something that I could see a parent reading this and talking to it about their kids. I could see spouses reading it and talking about how they want to imitate or implement this in their marriage. I could see just reading this to be a better friend. I could see this to read this to be around coworkers and just make sure that this is something that you could do. I could just see this as something that you want to understand a book better and then watch this word come alive in a book. I think there's just many ways that this becomes a tool that doesn't just stay in a book, but leaves the page and maybe gets into, as he said, the theology actually gets into your real life. And it actually takes that next step. Well, I hope that, I know this is an elongated, thing, but it's also helpful sometimes. I know for most of you might watch these and you get to a point where you're like, you sold me, and you can just turn it off, go buy the book and read it and then come back. Yeah. Or for some of you, you might watch this after you read the book and give me leave a comment.
Or for some of you named Ryan, you might be on this podcast before you've read the book. You read 1, maybe 2 chapters out of it.
I always love knowing if someone read it, just put it in the comments, did it, read it, put your favorite chapter. Maybe there's a word that you're excited to check out. Obviously, if you've been listening to the sermon series, just say, this has been my favorite. Just tell us who's the best preacher out of the whole series, because we've had 4 different people, right?
That's
5 different
You
people.
were the first one.
Yes, so 5 different people.
Yeah.
Which is awesome.
Yeah. Hit a thumbs up for me and a thumbs down for Trevor.
Yeah, we'll just make a rank system.
Which is funny because they took away the thumbs down.
We'll keep that updated. Oh, my gosh.
I thought they did. Maybe
I think they did. I think they did. But as always, you can always go check out some other podcast things. There's other things that we even mentioned in here, different topics and full discussions that we've had on some of those. Even some of the words that we mentioned, I think we've touched on in Verses of the Day or there are discussions in other books or with professors. Shane Wood's on here is amazing discussions multiple different times. Matt, what's this for the other professor from Ozark?
Stafford.
Matt Stafford was one that we had.
Matthew McBirth.
Matthew McBirth was the one that I was thinking of.
He studied at Northern Seminary under Scott McKnight or one of them for a minute.
I was going to say he's from Northern too. We have discussions in there that you could check out. As always, leave a comment if you just enjoyed it and you liked it. Leave a thumbs up if you like Ryan.
If you didn't like it, keep it to yourself. I don't want to hear it.
Pass it on if you want to share, and come and find us if you actually read it and you just want to tell us in person. We always love those conversations too. And until next time, and we get Bailey on here, and she teaches us how to do this better.
Yep.
Because she's definitely going to see this.
Yep.
Have a great and glorious day in the Lord. We'll see you later.
See ya.